Hello, everybody. This is going to be me and my friend's theory on searching for a server that doesn't exist. We spent a really long time on this theory. We sat in BC for about 4 hours discussing it, writing down notes, researching, just to make sure everything was, made sense. The backbone of this theory is that Darlord 3 is the person who wrote the note in the abandoned city. And before you dismiss this theory as just another theory that doesn't really make sense, there's actually a surprising amount of evidence that supports this theory when you research the King in Yellow and the city of Carcosa, which is the name of the abandoned city. Essentially, the inhabitants of Carcosa wanted to summon the King in Yellow, and Darlord was like, this is a fucking stupid plan. Worship is not going to get us anywhere. If we even see him, our minds are going to shatter. So he distanced himself from the village, building a little house on the end of town. If we take a closer look inside the house, there are multiple chairs with one chair topped over. This could possibly imply that Darlord had a family and that the toppled-over chair was his due to him leaving. As Darlord was writing that final letter, the king had already arrived, which means the townspeople had already started to lose themselves in their own madness, which could explain the murmurs that Darlord hears consistently throughout the ARG. However, as we know, the King in Yellow is all-knowing, so he deliberately let Darlord leave to get to Avery. As Darlord is leaving, all of the inhabitants of Carcosa get turned into puppets. If you're unaware of what that means, puppets are a very consistent theme with the King of Yellow if you do research into it. He's known for turning his victims, or their victims, into puppets once they lose their mind. Our Lord leaves Carcosa, as the King in Yellow lets him, and while doing this, he essentially deletes Minecraft off of his computer. However, Darlord also left with a guilty conscience, knowing all of the people who inhabited that village, though he found them insufferable, all became puppets to the King in Yellow. So even to this day, he lives with a guilty conscience. Due to the guilty conscience he carries and the trauma of knowing that everybody you knew has now become a puppet to a god who sees them as nothing more as playthings, over the years his mind began to block out memories to the point where he did not even remember his own name. This is potentially why his name was censored until the very second he passes through the gates into Carcosa. That is a reflection of him slowly remembering who he is and where he came from. This could also explain why it only took him 17 minutes and a pen of paper to decrypt the message on the wall. He came from Carcosa. He knows the language. It just took his mind jogging its own memory. That's why he needed some time and only a pen and paper. He speaks of double encryptions, but I personally believe his mind is trying to excuse the fact that it knows the language, that it's trying to excuse and come up with reasons as to why it's so easy for him to understand it, because it's not ready to face the fact that this is where he came from. It's not ready to deal with that trauma that it buried away for so long. This can also help explain why he seemed to panic every time he heard those whispers. He seemed to have a very severe reaction the majority of the time, which could be because those are the whispers of the people he once knew in Carcosa, and his mind wasn't ready to face that fact. It's like watching a house burning down and you hear the screams of those who die. And hearing similar screams causes you to have a traumatic reaction to such a thing. Darlord experiences a similar thing, but it's the whispers of the townspeople he once knew. I also believe the thing that was chasing him to be the puppets of the King in Yellow. The puppets who were the people he once knew. I believe he partially ran away because he wasn't ready to face them. His mind wasn't ready to see them again in such a state, knowing that he left and did nothing. This also explains why when he entered Carcosa, he started typing a lot less. He was having flashbacks. He was remembering things so fast that he couldn't exactly process it. He couldn't portray it into words, and I don't think he was even thinking about it. I think a very key part of him regaining his memory was being in his old house. He took the time to look around as if he was reminiscing. I believe the moment he remembered everything was when he read the message that he left. He started to move slower. He started to conduct himself in a much slower manner as he went towards the bookcase looking for some sort of hidden passageway as if he knew one was there, just couldn't exactly remember where he had placed it. And then he had broken the bookshelf. As he started down the passageway looking left and right, he started to hear those voices again. And at this point in time, he knew full and well who those voices were. The deceased, the people he used to know, his family. Perhaps it was just a glimmer of hope. Perhaps he wanted to redeem himself for abandoning his family. So he listened to the voices and he went left. We all know what happened when he goes past those golden gates. He sees the King in Yellow and he loses his mind. His mind is racing. He's panicking. He's becoming a puppet just like his family became, just like the people, just like he was supposed to be originally had he not left. His mind racing and full of knowledge now. His only thoughts were to remind Avery, the person he now had knowledge of, due to him having all of the knowledge. Due to this, he also knew exactly how much time he had before he went mad. He knew he could do nothing else than warn Avery. Nothing more. At this point, Darlord had already accepted his fate, accepted that he would be a puppet just like the people of Carcosa. But he needed to stop it from reaching Avery, because sure the King in Yellow reached Avery, it could reach so many more people, as Avery isn't limited to Carcosa. I believe the second the recording shuts off after he puts the note in the chest is the second that Darlord loses his mind. He can no longer take the burden of all of this knowledge, and he snaps. I believe in Part 2 we will potentially see Darlord as a puppet, because that is what he had become. And hopefully, potentially, we will see some of the other residents. Also, this isn't really evidence, but just a little thing I like to mention is that Darlord's skin has a lot of yellow on it, particularly gold, which is still considered a yellow, which could hint at his origins in Carcosa. Anyway, that's all for our little theory video. If you have theories of your own, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I love looking at theories, and it's so cool to hear others' perspectives.